There's a certain kind of silence in a small town. Not peaceful, not quiet. It's the kind of silence that comes right before someone says, "Now, I ain't one to gossip." But that silence had been circling my house for a while. I just hadn't figured out why. Now, I'm not a complicated man. I run a farm equipment supply business, keep to my 3 acres, and like my coffee with grit and truth. My wife, Lorraine, was always the sociable one. PDA potlucks, quilting circles, monthly wine nights where the wine flowed and the Bible verses got real creative. We used to go to church together every Sunday. Sat in the same pew, second from the front, right under the squeaky fan. Lorraine called it our holy spot. Then one Sunday, she turned to me over breakfast and said, "Babe, I think we should split up." Took me a second to breathe again. Split what? Church. Not us. I mean, don't you think we'd meet more people if we each branched out a little? I could try Morning Light. You could stick with Hillside. This from a woman who once panicked when the usher moved our hymnals. But I nodded, because that's what you do in a marriage. You nod. You trust. You keep buttering your toast. At first, it seemed harmless. She came home from services with bulletins and smiles. Talked about new connections she was making. Said she wanted to get more involved in ministry work. Baking, mostly. Said it helped her feel centered. Now, my wife's never been a baker. The last time she tried to make banana bread, we had to replace the oven. Not clean it, replace it. But suddenly, she's coming home with pecan pies, peach cobblers, snickerdoodles that looked like they were straight out of Pinterest. All arranged in gift boxes with raffia and little notes signed blessed and baked with love. That's when I started noticing the crust. All of M, every pie, tart, crumble, had this tiny burn mark along the right edge. Like someone in that kitchen hadn't quite calibrated the oven. Same spot every time. Like clockwork. Now, I'm not Sherlock Holmes, but I'm a man who rebuilds tractors and notices patterns for a living. And the pattern here didn't make sense, because Lorraine still didn't know how to work our oven timer. One day, she said she had an extended ministry meeting on Wednesday evening. I smiled, nodded, and handed her the keys. Then I waited. About an hour after she left, I walked over to the garage, climbed into the pickup, and took a drive. Not to follow her. I'm not that guy. I just wanted to see where her ministry met. Turns out, they met in the basement of Morning Light Community Chapel, the new one with the fancy coffee bar and a parking lot like a Cracker Barrel. Only 4 cars in the lot. Hers was one. Another was the youth pastor's truck, shiny red, lifted, with tires that screamed insecurity compensation. Now, I'd met the guy once. Pastor Tate, mid-30s, former missionary, real tight jeans for a man of God, called everybody brother, and looked every woman in the eye just a second too long. I didn't wait around. I drove home. I wasn't ready yet. See, that's the mistake most men make. They find out and confront too soon. They make it emotional, loud, sloppy. I'm not that guy. Instead, I played dumb. The next few weeks, I noticed Pastor Tate's name came up more. Casual-like. Tate says lemon zest really brings out the crust. Tate thinks ministry should be more experiential. Tate wants to host a young couples retreat. We should consider helping. I smiled, nodded, asked if she wanted to invite him over for dinner. She laughed. He's too busy for that. I bet he is. Then came the kicker. One Saturday morning, while she was out delivering pastries to the shut-ins, Pastor Tate shows up at our door, holding a gift basket, lavender soap, cinnamon tea, and a stack of baked goods with, you guessed it, that same burn pattern. Said he just wanted to bless our home. Told me he admired the way Lorraine kept the spirit alive, even at home. Then winked. Not playfully, not warmly. Smug. I thanked him, took the basket, watched him drive away. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. And right then, I didn't get mad. Didn't flip a table. I opened that basket, took out the USB drive I'd stashed inside 2 weeks earlier when I'd started monitoring our home security cams, and dropped it into my pocket. Had a second copy in the shed. Third in my truck glove box. See, the trick to revenge in a town like ours isn't fire. It's politeness. Politeness with a fuse so slow, nobody sees it burning until it blows the hymnals off the pews. And I had just the place to light it. The church picnic. Annual. Huge. Everyone brings a dish. Kids play tug-of-war. Deacons play cornhole like it's a regional sport. And someone, always someone, gives a testimony of gratitude before the pie judging contest. Guess who volunteered this year? Yep, me. I signed up the day after the basket. Told Pastor Tate I felt moved by the Spirit. He clapped me on the back and said I'd be a blessing. I was. Oh, I was. But he had no idea what kind. The church picnic always took place the third Saturday in June. By then, the sun's hot enough to tan your scalp through a trucker hat, and the flies start looking at you like you're the one trespassing. But we showed up anyway. Every year. For the fellowship, the deviled eggs, and the competitive pie judging that had been ruining friendships since 1972. This year was no different, except it was. I arrived early. Lorraine came separately. Claimed she had to help Tate set up the dessert tent. I told her that sounded just holy enough to pass. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, the kind that doesn't land, and drove off with her pie tin riding shotgun. I took my time. Wore my best boots, the brown ones she bought me for our 5th anniversary. Pressed shirt. Fresh shave. I even brought one of my mama's old lemon chess pies. A real one. From scratch. No shortcuts. No burn marks. It was already pushing 90 when I pulled into the lot behind the church lawn. Half the town was already milling around the folding tables and hay bales. Deacon Jones was hauling out the corn boil station. Miss Shelby's grandchildren were taking bets on which uncle would pass out from heatstroke first. I parked and walked over with the pie in one hand and something else in the other, something small and silver that fit in my palm like a secret. A USB drive, looped with a red ribbon. I'd thought about the method for a while. Screens? No. Too flashy. Too impersonal. I wanted something tactile. Something that would sit there, on a white linen dessert table, glowing like a guilty conscience. And then I saw it. Table 3. Labeled. Youth Ministry Dessert Contributions. Right there, in the middle, was Lorraine's pie. Rhubarb. Burn mark on the crust at 2 o'clock, just like always. Perfect. And just beside it, Pastor Tate's infamous caramel pecan masterpiece. Guy made it every year. Always bragged about how it came from prayer and a little bourbon. Folks loved it. 1 ribbons. I waited until no one was looking. Slipped the USB onto the silver tray next to his pie like a garnish. Tucked a folded note under it. To Pastor Tate, thanks for inspiring my wife's passion. The footage says it all. Then I walked off and grabbed a cup of sweet tea like I'd just blessed the table with a drizzle of honey and forgiveness. The opening prayer started about 15 minutes later. Tate stood up front, smiling that smirk he always wore when people clapped a little too loudly after his sermons. Lorraine sat near him, laughing with the church secretary and pretending she didn't notice me standing alone near the potato salad. They kept stealing glances my way. Lorraine, that is. Tate was too busy working the crowd like a Southern fried politician. But I saw it in her eyes. The nerves, the flicker of something unsteady under all that blush and grace. She didn't know I knew. She just knew I was up to something. And that was enough to make her chew her lip like it owed her rent. After the food line, everyone settled in under the tent for the testimony of gratitude. I'd volunteered, remember? Told them I wanted to share a few words about how God had moved in my life. The mic was old, wired, and buzzed like a wasp nest. I tapped it twice, cleared my throat, looked out at that sea of familiar faces, neighbors, co-workers, half the local volunteer fire squad, and even the mayor's second cousin who always shows up for cobbler and gossip. And I smiled. Hey, y'all. I'll keep this short. I just wanted to say I'm thankful. For a lot of things. Polite nods. A few murmured amenes. I'm thankful for this town, this congregation, and for my lovely wife who, well, let's just say she's found new purpose lately. Now the murmurs stopped. Lorraine's posture went stiff. Tate's smile faltered. Just a little. Just enough. She's been spending time at the Morning Light Church lately, I continued. Getting involved in youth ministry, doing some baking, and from what I understand, bonding real close with the community. Especially the new youth pastor. Someone coughed. Someone else stopped mid-bite. I just want to say thank you, Pastor Tate, I said, locking eyes with him, for helping reignite my wife's spiritual flame, and for inspiring my lawyer to file faster than a raccoon in a henhouse. That did it. You know that collective inhale a crowd does when it's trying to decide if it's watching a sermon or a scandal? That happened. I reached down and pointed toward the dessert table. And as a token of my appreciation, I've left you a little something next to your award-winning pie. You'll find it enlightening. The silence was nuclear. Then someone said, Lord have mercy, under their breath, and the fuse finally hit the powder. Tate stood up. Lorraine turned red so fast you'd think her blood forgot how to circulate. A few people rose to see what I was pointing at. That little USB sat like an apple on the tree of knowledge. Innocent, tempting, heavy with sin. I handed the mic back to Deacon Jones, nodded, and walked off the stage without another word. No yelling, no fighting, just me, my empty pie tin, and the knowledge that truth had finally been plated and served. Behind me, someone dropped a fork. Then the murmurs began. The thing about scandal in a small town is it doesn't explode, it simmers. It bubbles under the skin like a sunburn you didn't feel until nightfall. And once it starts, once the whispering starts, it don't stop. Not for God, not for decency, not for pie. I didn't turn to watch what Pastor Tate did when he saw the USB. Didn't need to. The silence told me all I had to know. It was the kind of silence where the air gets thinner, where nobody dares scrape a plastic fork against a paper plate, where even the birds seem to perch quietly and listen in. I was halfway across the field by the time I heard Lorraine's voice. Not yelling, not crying, just a shaky, high-pitched mic. Like she forgot how my name tasted. I kept walking, walked straight to the back lot, tossed my pie tin in the truck bed, and leaned against the tailgate with my arms folded. Watched the church lawn from a distance like it was a stage play I'd already seen twice. From that far away, everything looks peaceful. But if you zoomed in, you'd see it happening. One old lady leaning in to whisper to another. A kid tugging on his dad's sleeve, asking why Pastor Tate was sweating through his shirt. The church secretary fanning herself and looking like she'd just been personally betrayed by Jesus and HR. And Lorraine? She was still frozen at the dessert table, staring down at that little flash drive like it might sprout legs and walk off. See, the beauty of what I did wasn't in the file itself. It wasn't even the photos, grainy, timed just right from a discreetly installed camera in our laundry room. Not indecent, just intimate enough. Her hands on his back, his voice saying her name in that whispery tone that no man should use on another man's wife. No, the beauty was in how I dropped it. In public, on holy ground, wrapped in silence and courtesy. I hadn't screamed, hadn't accused, hadn't even named names. I let the congregation do that for me. Within minutes, the deacon's wife had crossed herself 6 times. The youth ministry kids were being shuffled away from the dessert tent like it had caught fire. And Tate, sweet, smiling, tight jeans Tate, was visibly unraveling by the lemonade cooler. He picked up the USB, turned it over like he was trying to find an escape hatch, and read the note I left beneath it. Then he looked up, eyes scanned the crowd, finally landed on me. Our eyes met across 24 picnic tables and one field of uncomfortable Christians. I didn't smile, didn't scowl, just gave him a nod. The kind you give someone when they've finally met their reckoning. I think that's what broke him. Not the file, not the whispers, but the fact that I wasn't even angry anymore. I was done. Tate walked straight to his truck about 2 minutes later. Lorraine followed, but he shut the door before she could climb in. She stood there, knocking on the window like that'd undo it all. Like dignity could be bargained back in a church parking lot. It couldn't. I waited until both of them were gone before I wandered back through the crowd. People made way. Politely. Cautiously. Like I was a live wire. One woman, Sandra May Holloway, the choir director, actually patted me on the shoulder. "You did it with grace," she said, voice low. "The Lord sees that." I just nodded. She slipped me an extra slice of chess pie and a napkin. Said I earned it. By the end of the afternoon, the congregation was divided into 2 camps. Those who claimed they always had a weird feeling about Tate, and those who just wanted to talk about anything else. No one wanted to take sides openly. Not yet, but you could tell which way the wind was blowing. The next day, I filed for divorce. Didn't argue. Didn't scream. Just sent Lorraine the papers in an envelope taped to the fridge door, right next to a post-it that read, "You can keep the pie dish." She tried to call. Then she tried to text. Then she showed up at the house, makeup streaked, clutching the envelope like it had blood on it. "I didn't sleep with him," she said. First thing out of her mouth. I didn't ask. "You have no idea what I've been going through," she added. "You were always so distant. So cold." I raised an eyebrow. "I made you coffee every morning," I said. "That's not intimacy." "No," I said. "But not sleeping with the youth pastor is." She shut up after that. Tried crying. Didn't work. Tried threatening to tell the church her side. I said she was welcome to, but to remember that small-town gossip doesn't come with brakes once you press the gas. She signed the papers 3 days later. The dog stayed with me. The house stayed with me. The congregation? Well, they stayed too. At least the ones who mattered. Tate went on sabbatical the following week. Church bulletins said he was taking time for reflection and healing. Translation: they gave him the boot with a smile. A month later, they voted to replace him. His replacement was a retired military chaplain named Luther who didn't believe in sugarcoating sermons or serving communion without gloves. Lorraine moved in with her sister down in Concord. She still comes into town sometimes. I see her at the grocery store, pausing too long in the bakery aisle, looking at pies like they're booby-trapped. She always avoids eye contact. Sometimes I think about walking up, saying something kind, or at least civil, but then I remember the burn mark on the crust, and I just push my cart right past her, quiet as a whisper, clean as Sunday linen. Because forgiveness might be divine, but memory? That's holy too. Funny thing about finishing something, it rarely feels like an ending. There's no confetti, no dramatic score swelling in the background. Just a long exhale and the quiet realization that you're finally standing in a room you don't have to share with lies. It's been 6 months since the picnic. 6 months since the USB. Since the look on Lorraine's face curdled into something she couldn't mask with church lady charm. Since the town peeled back the polite wallpaper and started seeing what was underneath. You'd be surprised how fast people realign when they realize they've been taking advice from someone who can't even keep their vows in order. Morning Light Church got a fresh coat of paint, a new pulpit, and a rule about keeping youth counseling to public spaces only. Pastor Tate? Gone. The last I heard, he was leading Zoom devotionals for a church startup in Florida. No physical address. No accountability. Just a camera, a ring light, and 100 likes from people who never tasted his rhubarb pie. As for Lorraine, well, she kept the last name. I didn't fight her on it. Let her carry it around like a weight she chose. Every few weeks, I still get an envelope in the mailbox, small-town lawyer stuff. Finalizing asset separation. Confirming the sale of the car we bought together. Signing off on the house officially transferring to my name. It's all neat. Legal. Sterile. But once, she sent a note tucked inside. Just 4 words. Was it worth it? No punctuation. No name. Just that. I didn't answer. Because answering would mean she still had a place at the table. And she doesn't. I don't say that with anger. Not even with pride. Just fact. She chose a moment. I chose permanence. I chose the slow burn route. The one where you don't flip furniture or throw accusations into a thunderstorm. I chose the version where truth sits in the center of a dessert table while everyone watches it glow. And yeah, it cost me something. It cost me quiet mornings with someone in the kitchen. It cost me the habit of saying we instead of me. It cost me the illusion that some people are who they pretend to be when aprons and God are involved. But I gained more. I gained space. The kind of space where I can read a book without wondering who's texting her at 9:43 p.m. Where I can eat a damn pie without tasting deceit baked into the crust. Where I can walk into church, sit in a pew, and bow my head without hearing whispers trailing behind me like a bad perfume. Now I sit 2 rows back, still under that squeaky fan, alone, and I'm okay with that. People nod when they pass. Some still ask if I'll ever date again. I just smile and say, maybe. Truth is, I'm not in a rush to let anyone else into the quiet. Not until they've earned it. Last week, I brought my own pie to the fall harvest supper. Lemon meringue. Real crust. My mama's recipe. Didn't enter it into the judging. Didn't make a speech. Just set it on the table and walked away. By the end of the night, it was gone. Clean as a whistle. Not a crumb left. Deacon Jones came by and clapped me on the back. Saw your pie disappeared real quick, he said. You gonna start competing again? I shook my head. Nope. I just wanted to remind folks what real tastes like. He laughed. Said that's the best sermon he'd heard all year. I nodded. Didn't tell him I was quoting my lawyer. Some Sundays, I see Lorraine from a distance. She started attending a new church across town. Drives a different car now. Still dresses like someone who wants to be seen. I don't hate her. I don't wish her ill. I just hope she wakes up every now and then, looks at a dessert tray, and flinches. Not out of guilt. Out of recognition. Because some betrayals don't shout. They sit. They wait. They grow legs and walk into rooms long after you've left. That's the kind of revenge I like. The quiet kind. The kind that tastes sweet on the way down, but leaves a memory that burns in just one spot, right at the edge. like a crust pulled too soon from an oven that doesn't belong to you. Subscribe to the channel